So we've talked a little bit about wages. I hope I haven't bored you too much. Got some good information. Apprenticeship. And when it comes to apprentices, all workers or contractors and subcontractors on a public works project must make a good faith effort to hire, employ, train apprentices within your trade, craft, or classification, as long as your trade, craft, or classification is an apprenticeable trade, craft, and or classification. Good faith effort is the key here. Just like anything else, you must keep good records of what you have, and you must keep proof of what you have done. That is the key. I'm sure the airport, every agency within San Diego or the state of California will want to see proof that you submitted that DS 140 and 142. That's either three ways, right? You can do it via fax, email, or first class mail. I tell everyone, just do it fax. You can't dispute a fax. People say, oh, I don't have a fax. Well, go buy one. It's like 45 bucks. Right? Hook it up, fax it, you got the sheet. As long as you got the right number and you send it in there, you send that in, you technically are good to go as long as you can show that. And we'll get into that. What you need to do, you need to submit a DS 140, you need to request apprentices, you need to employ apprentices in the proper ratio, and you need to pay the appropriate training funds. So step one, you need to submit the contract award information or the DS 140 to all appropriate apprenticeship committees. If you're already approved to train, you send that DS 140 to who you are already approved to train with, right? So what does that mean? If you are already approved to train apprentices, that means you're a member of an apprenticeship program, must send a DS 140 to the apprenticeship committee to which they belong to each separate craft they plan to employ. What does that mean? So but here's what this means. You're going to have a bunch of variables when you do apprenticeship with the DS 140 and 142. If you are signatory to a training organization, you will submit your DS 140 to that training organization for that trade, craft, or classification you are signatory to. Once you have done that and you have proof that you've submitted it, you're done with the DS 140. If you are not approved to train and or not a member of the ABC, the AGC, or the union, you may send upwards to 5 of these out prior to the job being started. Does everyone understand what that means? Therefore, and I'll show you how you can go on and look, you need to go see. So if I'm a laborer and I'm not signatory to the laborers union or the AGC, I probably have to send a couple of these out, one to Local 89, one to the AGC, and I don't know any other one. You may have to send 2. If I'm an operating engineer, you may have to send 1 or 2. If I'm, it just depends on your trade, craft, or classification. Must be in writing, must be submitted within 10 days of the date of the primer contract, but no event later than the first day the contractor has workers employed on the public works project, right? What does that mean? If I start today, am I good if I submit my DS 140 next week? Nope. It must be prior to workers on site. And you can't fudge these either. The state of California in the past, the DAS was the one who oversaw and enforced apprenticeship rules and regulations on a public works project. With the change in regulation, the DLSC is now the enforcement arm for apprenticeship issues. What does that mean? That means they are actively pursuing apprenticeship penalties on subcontractors and contractors. That means if you're 10 days late, you may owe $1,000 for that DS 140. There's a ton of different reasons here that you can be fined and penalized for working on a public works project. If it's under $30,000 for the total contract, you are exempt from the apprenticeship rules and regulations. There are non-union agencies and or training organizations in the state that have state-approved apprenticeship programs. So laborers, we've got Local 89 here in San Diego, who is the laborers union. So you can become a member of Local 89 and get apprentices and train apprentices through Local 89. There's the AGC, the Associated General Contractors, which is not necessarily a union organization. They will accept union and non-union members, but you can also get labor apprentices through them. Yeah, so let's say I employ laborers, painters, and carpenters. I'm signatory to the laborers local 89, but I'm not signatory to the painters or the carpenters. For laborers local 89, if I'm signatory, I'll send the DS 140 to them. For the painters, because I'm non-signatory, I may have to send it to the ABC, the local union, the AGC, whoever can supply me apprentices underneath that trade crafter classification. If I'm not signatory to the carpenters, same difference. I may have to send out 3-4 of these DAS 140s. You only do it once at the beginning of the job prior to work being done on site. So it's easy to think of it this way. This is a notification to training organizations that you have been awarded a public work agency. If you're signatory to a training organization such as the ABC, AGC, or a local union, or any organization that's accredited, certified, and recognized by the state, you will send your DS 140 for that trade crafter classification to who you are signatory and or a member of. If you are not signatory and or a member of a training organization, you must go online and see all the different people you can send them to and send them to all those different people. Now that being said, you said, what about LA? You may pull up a laborers and you're going to use a general labor, and underneath it says labor striping. If you're not going to do striping, then you technically don't need to send it to them. Now, other organizations will tell you, yeah, you should send it to everybody. Will you be dinged if you send it to everybody? No. What's the good about it? You can never be dinged. What's the bad about it? You've now alerted 15 different organizations throughout the state that you're non-union and or non-signatory, and you may get a phone call or two. Okay, and again, I mean, we got 45 minutes here. And really, we could spend a full week talking about apprenticeship because there are all kinds of exemptions. There are ways that you can petition the state to be exempt from a per job apprenticeship ratio. If you can show that you use 20% apprentices throughout your entire workforce, you can be exempt from a lot of stuff. If you're signatory to the local 89, you can have a laborer's exemption where it's not by hours, it's by bodies. And the operating engineers now have like a 1 to 4, 1 to 5. For every 4 journeymen on, the 5th, for every 5, the 6th must be an apprentice. So DS 140, everyone aware of that, right? That looks like that. Submitted, it's basically the same difference here. So yeah, how do you know which apprenticeship committees are approved in a geographical area? Information of approved apprenticeship programs are available on the DS website. It is critical that anyone searching for Public Works use the link. Here's a link right here. So you're going to click on there and you're going to call it up and you're going to put in San Diego, Carpenter, and click, and you're going to get a whole list of apprenticeship programs. You're going to get a whole list, and then you got to figure out which ones are applicable to you, not by location, by classification and work being performed. Just be safe, right? Right here, right? Select a county, select a county, select an occupation. Right there, this is what the website is going to look like. And there we go. Cement masons. We got San Diego Associated General Contractors. Now they're not a union shop. They're not a union organization, but they can train. Oh, wait a sec. Dude, I'm not sending it to Arcadia.
Send it to Arcadia.
I'm sending it to Arcadia because it's right there. And then we got the Labor Cement Mason Joint Apprenticeship Committee in Azusa. So this is perfect, right? So you can see. When you call it up, these 3 people can give you apprentices. So who do you send the DS 140 to if you're not signatory? All of them. All of them, yep. So any cement masons in here? Anybody do cement mason work? You know about the labor cement masons, right? Because that was kind of like nobody knew and nobody would ask for apprentices from the laborers, and now all of a sudden they're requesting information, and and you guys know that anything and everything you submit on a public works project is available via third-party request, right? Anything you submit can and will go to an interested party who wants to see what you're doing on this public works project. Now, there are some laws there that say we have to redact certain information and all the above, but if they're a joint labor management committee and they request your certified payroll, I'm going to send them your certified payroll, and I think the only thing we block off is a social, right? Only the social, so your workers' names, addresses, pay rate, everything will be given to the public. Yeah, you should know that. Yeah, this is a DS 140. Fill it out completely. Make sure that it's not incomplete. You've got to fill it out. You've got to give them. No NA, no TBD, none of the above. It's got to be filled out completely. It's got to have all the information you want on it, and it's got to be able for people to understand who you're submitting it to, okay? If your contract is under $30,000 for the general contract, it's not required, right? But if it is over, you must do it. It's the big contract, not your contract, right? Everyone understands about checking box 1, 2, and 3, right? Do we know which box are you going to check? This is the DAS. Karen Belcher wants you to be aware of what these boxes mean. She called me this morning and said, make sure I hit these 3 boxes. Okay, you check box 1. That's telling the training organization, hey, I'm signatory to you, and I'm going to follow your standards. Okay, number 2 means I'm not signatory to anybody right now, AGC, ABC, or anything, but I'm going to check box 2 because I'm going to sign a project-specific agreement so that I can get apprentices from you on this project. Does that make sense to you guys? Because you can sign project-specific agreements for apprenticeship. Check box 3 if you're going to do 20% and meet the state ratio. So here's where the rub comes. If you check box 1, you need to basically meet the standards of the AGC, which may or may not be in alignment with the 20% at the state of California. If you check box 2, that's the exact same deal. You're meeting the standards written out in your master labor agreement, collective bargaining agreement, standards for your trade craft or classification based upon who you're signatory to. If you check box 3, you want to meet that 20%. If you're signatory, let's say you're signatory to the AGC, and the AGC says for every 1 journeyman, you can have an apprentice. And I'm not saying this is correct, I'm just saying this. What could your percentage be at? It could be higher than 20%. Will you guys ding them if they're higher than 20%? If their agreement says they can go? You're not going to ding them for that, right? You will ding them. Uh-oh. Okay, well, I won't ding you. State won't ding you as long as you follow the agreement and the ratios under your standards. That's what the DAS says, is that you follow your standards if you're going to check box 1. 20% if you're going to check box 3. Good faith effort, right? Again, don't leave it incomplete. Step 2, request dispatch of apprentices from all appropriate committees. If you are not already employing sufficient registered apprentices to meet the 20% ratio, you must request dispatch from an apprenticeship committee providing training in the applicable craft or trade whose geographical area of operation includes the site of the public work. If you're a part of a program, request from that program first. If you don't get enough apprentices to meet the ratio, then send a DS 142 to all the other applicable programs, right? DS 142 is a request for apprentices. If you already have apprentices, as we said, on your certified payroll, or you're already employing them, you technically don't need to send it. I recommend you do. If you are part of a program and you don't have apprentices, let's say I'm part of the AGC, send it to the AGC, and then if I don't get apprentices, then I'll send it out to the other ones. If you're not part of a program, send it to the DS 142 to all the applicable programs at the same time, right? Very easy. I mean, this is really easy stuff, right? Send it out and make sure you do it. Make sure you have backup. If you're at the end of the project and you did not send one out and you do not meet the ratio requirements, you cannot remedy that situation. Unremediable. If you're 80% into the project and you see that you don't have apprentices, send that out immediately and try to get apprentices and try to get to that ratio. The DS 140 doesn't know when or if you need apprentices. You know what I mean? I recommend sending it out at the beginning of the job and go, right? For every trade, craft, or classification. So again, you may send 1 of these out, you may send 5 of them out. Again, you go to that area and check it. You may do work with an agency that before you can upload certified payroll to LSP tracker, they want to see your DS 140 and 142 already uploaded. So another agency may have a different requirement. I don't know. Is that wrong? No. It's just how they are doing it. So another agency you may work for may say, hey, I want to see the DS 140 before you upload certified payroll, but the DS 142, you've got to manage that and make sure that you meet the apprenticeship requirements at the end of the job. So there may not be a time that you have to do that when that time comes. What can you do if nobody comes, you don't get any response from anybody, and you don't have apprentices on your payroll? You still met the requirement. Good faith effort, as long as you can show proof that you did everything you needed to do to get those apprentices. So you all may be cement masons in here, right? Every single one of you may be a firm that hires cement masons in work. You may have apprentices, you may not. You may have apprentices, you may not. And you still all may be in compliance. Yeah. You just have to make a good faith effort, and you have to send out the 140s and the 142s and all the above. So what happens when you do hear from somebody? What do? You accept that apprentice. Accept that apprentice, come out. Treat that apprentice just like you would a normal employee. Whatever you do for your normal employees, you do for that apprentice. That apprentice basically becomes your employee for the day. You drug test and drug test them. You give all of your employees a t-shirt and a hat, don't give him a t-shirt and a hat, or her t-shirt. I mean, you treat them like, boy, if they're not doing the work, you can send them back and request another one, but there's got to be a good reason. You can't just have them show up and say, I don't like the red shoes you're wearing, get out of here. You can't do that. Okay, so here's the next question. You hire and train apprentices through the laborers, right? You have laborers. The laborers union calls you and says, good morning, I'm going to send you apprentices. You have to just sign this project-specific agreement, and then Tina Smith is on her way tomorrow. What do? So what I'm getting at is you do not have to sign any sort of agreement to train an apprentice. You do not have to become signatory to that training organization. So if they call you and say, I can send you somebody, but you have to fill this out, you can fill it out and join and be fine. I'm not saying one way or the other, but if you don't want to, you have all the rights to say, I'll accept your apprentice, but I will not fill out your paperwork.
And then if they refuse to send the apprentice?
You've still met the requirement. That's on them, not on you. And you notate it and do it. You've sent everything. So again, DS-142 forms are available. All requests for dispatch of apprentices shall be in writing. And remember I said, first class mail, email, or fax. Proof of submission or receipt should be available. Requests must be sent at least 72 hours, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, before the date on which one or more apprentices are required. Everyone knows that's 72 hours? What did it used to be? 48? Now it's 72. 72 hours, you're just basically saying, I need that person with, 72 hours. You got to give them notice. So if you're asking if I'm only out there 2 days and I find out today that I'm out there tomorrow, then I would send it in today and write on there something saying, need them tomorrow. Because you'll see right there, date apprentice to report, time to report, all the above. And then if anyone asks you, say, I was notified on a Wednesday that I had to be out there on Thursday, and I did the best I could under my due diligence. Yeah, so that's what the form looks like. Request, so there's another one with information on there. See, the date is 3/24/11, date apprentice to report 2/25/11. So this sort of stuff comes in. Do not put TBD, don't put I don't need somebody or anything like that. Fill it out completely and correctly to make sure that you have the proof to show that you did your due diligence in good faith effort to hire and train and employ apprentices underneath the apprenticeship rules and regulations. This is one of Karen's favorite ones because this is an actual one she received with the dates. So now you're going to employ the apprentices, right, in the proper ratio. 1 hour for every 5 hours or 20% of journeyman straight time hours for each separate craft employed on the project, right? Everyone understands what that means? If you have carpenters, laborers, and cement masons, you can't intermingle them and say, hey, I employed 20% because I employed 7% carpenters, 7% cement masons, and 8% or 6% labor. So I'm good. I'm at the 20%. Now it's 20% for each trade, craft, and or classification. Hours are calculated at the end of the project, and apprentice programs must be willing to dispatch unconditionally. That means you do not have to sign any sort of agreement to get an apprentice from a training organization, right? So this is a funny one. Hours calculated at the end of the project. You have a contractor, ABC Construction. Anyone from ABC here? If you are, I'm sorry. They haven't met they're out there for 4 weeks, don't have any apprentices. On the 4th week, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm at 0%. I'm going to put 1 journeyman painter and 5 apprentices on that day. So I'm going to have 40 hours apprentice to 8 hours journeyman. Everyone understanding what I'm saying? At the end of I'm cruising through my job, and then I run a report, and I'm like, holy cow, I'm at 1% apprenticeship. I'm not going to meet it, right? And I didn't, oh my gosh, I've sent everything. I have apprentices. So tomorrow, you're going to be the journeyman because you're a journeyman, and you 5 over here are all apprentices in a bona fide apprenticeship program. You're going out there. So I'm going to get 40 apprenticeship hours to 8 hours of journeyman. And then at the end of that week, man, I'm going to be at 20%. Everyone understand what I'm saying? So it's weird. Some people enforce it, some people don't. If you're signatory to a training organization, union, ABC or AGC, you technically are against their collective bargaining agreement, and you may be penalized by your AGC, ABC, or union. But what will the state do? I don't know. In the past, the DAS would say at the end of the job, if you have 110, you're 20, you're there. I don't care how you did it through the life of the project. So. Yeah, it happens all the time where people stack apprentices. So how do you know if a dispatch apprentice is on a legitimate registered apprentice, right? You know that sometimes the training organizations will get busy and will forget to submit the paperwork. They dispatch out an apprentice to you. You're cool. That apprentice works for a week, goes away. You find out that he or she was never registered with the state of California. You need to make sure that they are registered in a bona fide program, they're in an approved apprenticeship program, have they written agreement, and you got to go there to check the certification status of that apprentice. If you are going to get an apprentice from the ABC, AGC, or a training organization, and you go on here and he or she does not show up, I would be very, very wary about accepting that apprentice unless he or she is like an apprentice level 1 and just joined the union, because it could take 30 to 45 days. But if you got a level 3, level 2, level 4 group, whatever, and they are not here on this state website, you basically are accepting a journeyman. So make sure that he or she is registered. If you can't get a DS1, he or she is not a registered in the eyes, and they must be paid journeyman rate, and hours worked count as journeyman hours, not apprenticeship hours, right? So we actually had a case a few years ago where a training organization dispatched an apprentice, and $8,000 later in penalties, that apprentice was a journeyman. That did not count the $4,300 in underpayments that were there. And the contractor came and said, I had no control. The union who I am signatory to dispatched me a non-registered apprentice. So what did I tell him? Buyer beware. Right? That's what we always say. You have got to be cognizant of what's going on your project with your apprentices. No trainees are allowed, right? Training fund. You must pay the appropriate training fund. If it's a part of the package and paid even to the contractor exempt from employing apprentices, you still got to pay it, right? You're not paid to the worker unless it's a non-apprenticeable craft. Are paid for all hours worked, journeymen and apprentices, overtime included, and are paid to the CAC and or your training organization, or due the 15th of the month for work performed during the preceding month. Everyone understand about training? What is training for? What's like the average age of a construction worker in the construction business right now? It's like 48. Nobody is coming into the construction trades anymore. Everybody wants to do computers and this sort of high-tech stuff, develop apps. So the construction industry is getting old, and there's not a lot of youngsters coming into the industry. So when you pay to the state of California, California Apprenticeship Council, to your funding to there, they take that and distribute it out to the different training organizations throughout the state to assist them in bringing in new qualified, skilled workforce to get into the apprenticeship program so that the construction in the state can continue to grow and thrive, right? Training fund amounts should be deducted from the total hourly wage before fringes or wages are paid. Do not pay training fund to the employee and then deduct it to pay the CAC or an apprenticeship program. Employees should not have to pay taxes on the training fund amount. Some takeaways from this, right? It's very complicated, but yet it's not very complicated. Follow the steps, create yourself a checklist of what you need to do for a public works project. Follow that checklist, make sure that you meet the requirements of every agency you're working for. Look up the PWC 100 form to get your information for the project. Get the project information. The more you know, the better off you are to tackle any problems that may or may not come forward during the project. Read the small print, do your homework, be your own advocate. right? If you call the general contractor and can't get information, you bug the heck out of that general contractor and/or awarding agency and/or labor compliance and/or state agency and/or ROIC officer, right? Be your own advocate. Take advantage of training. You can always email me and say, hey, any training coming up? Because we keep a pretty good pulse on what training is going on through the state. We'll be glad to send you information on that. Utilize the PW training manual. Understand travel and sub. Make a binder, print out all your relevant documents, have it. The other thing I like to tell people is if you're ever audited by the state stuff, the better your files look, the more organized everything is, the better an audit goes, right? Because we're auditors, they're auditors. When I walk into your business and look, if it's put together nice and it makes sense, the audit's going to go better and it's going to look better, right? So a couple of things. If you ever want to get information on a breakdown of wages for predetermined increase, 415-703-4774 is a number you can call the state. 415-703-4774. You can ask any information about a breakdown of your wages on a predetermined increase, because some predetermined increases may not have a breakdown and you may have to call for that breakdown. And then also, what is it? publicworks@dir.ca.gov. publicworks@dir.ca.gov. You can email them and ask them any question you'd like as it pertains to anything. Now, they may not get back to you, but email them. And then if you don't get a response, feel free to email me and say, hey, I never got a response, and we can help you out. My information is here. If you need anything, email me, call me, please. Oh, hang on. Let me see if PTAC's here so they can tell you a little bit. Does anyone want to hear about PTAC?
Hello, everyone. Just a quick overview of what we do. We're actually a partner of the San Diego Community College District outreach team. So we work in helping them diversify their pool of businesses that work with them, and so does Marty with his wonderful training. A little bit about our particular organization. We have two names. One is the San Diego Contracting Opportunity Center. We're also known as a PTAC, which is a Procurement Technical Assistance Center. That's essentially a national name. Our program is partially funded by the Department of Defense, and then we get about half of our funding from local sponsors such as the district. We offer free workshops, training, one-on-one assistance, and then also a bid match system. So we can bring you in with a counselor, and they can work with you, build a profile, and then you'll get emails on bid notifications. So any questions, ask me after the class, and happy to work with you. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. All right, if we don't have anything else, thank you. Email me if you need any forms or anything, and thanks for coming out today.